Greetings everybody and welcome back to Cedar Trades. So today we're going to be talking about one of the most important things to understand when you are a trader, which is your trading sessions. But before we get into that, please that subscribe button and make sure you turn on the notification bell to be notified when I drop more content like this. Let's get into this. What exactly are trading sessions? Trading sessions are periods during a 24-hour day when different regions' financial markets are open. The main four sessions are the Asian session, which is the Tokyo market. We have our London session. Our New York is basically cut into two, which is New York AM session and our New York PM session. And each session has its own unique trading behavior and influence, meaning what's gonna happen in the Asian session, right, is influencing the market, and that is forever gonna happen in the marketplace. So the minute you know what happens in these trading sessions, you can basically repeat the whole thing, and it's very crucial that you understand what's happening, as each session relies on the other session to basically form out, right? So we're gonna be looking at our session times here. I'm gonna be showing this in two different times, which is your New York time, your UTC-4, and we have our UTC+2. This is South African time. I think UK as well uses UTC+2. So here we have our Asian session going from 6 p.m. to 12 midnight, and our second session, which is the London session, as soon as the Asian session ends, which is 12 midnight to 6 a.m. and after that, as soon as the London session ends, we have our New York AM session, which goes from 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. and as soon as the New York AM session ends, we have our New York PM session, which goes from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. and the whole thing repeats. And looking at UTC+2, right, this is what I like to call universal time, because it's basically aligned starting from 00 to 00, right? New York actually starts at 6 p.m. and ends at 6 p.m. That is still a 24-hour day. Not what do you call it? Say I'm saying New York doesn't have 24 hours and other countries actually have 24 hours. No, but I'm saying the manner that they are shown in are very different, whereby we see that our UTC+2 time is only 6 hours ahead of New York time, right? And then in this, right, there is something that we would like to add as well, which is the central bank dealers range. And your central bank dealers range is basically just the last 2 hours of your previous day and the first 2 hours of your current day. So this now cuts our London session from starting at 6 and it sends it to 8. Why? Because the first 2 hours of that Asian session falls into the central bank dealers range, and instead of our New York PM session going from 12 to 6, it now goes from 12 to 4. Your central bank dealers range is just the last 2 hours from your previous day and the first 2 hours of your new day, right? So looking at this, we actually gonna explain how or what happens in the sessions themselves now that we have their times, right? So the Asian session covers the Tokyo market, and it's typically characterized by lower volatility compared to the London and New York sessions, but it can provide insights into early trends and setups, right? And we have our London session here as soon as the Asian session ends, and this session starts with the opening of the London market, right? It's one of the most volatile sessions as it overlaps with the end of the Asian session, and key economic news from Europe often impacts market movements around this time right here. So if you have any news that falls into midnight New York up until 6 a.m. New York, that is actually European news, right? So looking at this now, the third session, as soon as our London session ends, we have our New York AM session. And this session begins with the opening of the New York market. It sees significant volatility, particularly at the open. Why? Because it overlaps with the London session for a few hours, resulting in high trading volumes. Right? In our fourth session that comes in as soon as our New York AM session ends is our New York PM session, and this session continues the activity from the New York AM session but tends to have slightly reduced volatility, and it focuses on the afternoon trading activities and closing of the New York AM and PM market, right? And we usually do not see a lot of price movements in this session here, but you're gonna see that when we actually get into the chart. Right now we're gonna be looking at the central bank dealers range, and the central bank dealers range marks the last 2 hours of the previous day and the first 2 hours of the current day. It's typically a range where central banks and large institutions may conduct, setting a significant tone for the market, right? So now that we have the whole logic behind what's happening in the session, right, we now wanna look at a live chart and see what actually happens. So let's get into that. So we are now in a live chart and we are looking at a GBP USD chart here, and you can see that I highlighted every central bank dealers range in our charts right here. I highlighted my Asian session, my London session, and my New York AM session right here, right? So we're just gonna look at the few days that are highlighted here and we actually see what happened. So this, like I said, it's typically a range right in here, and we see a range as well in Asian session, and we see London session providing us some sort of move, and we see this New York AM session right here, and like we said, New York most of the time provides the volatile move. Look at this in here in the New York AM session. Right now, going to another day as well, we see that our central bank right here wasn't a range, right? So automatically this day right here, it doesn't become a favorite day. Why? Because our central bank dealers range right here is not in a typical range that we like to see all the time in the central bank dealers range. We see some sort of movement as well in the Asian session, right? But looking at the London and New York from the Asian session, you can clearly see that the London and New York session are the two sessions that provide the best move. Now if we were in the London session, or we had only said we're gonna trade in the London session, if you had watched my previous video, let's say I say I'm always gonna trade my London sessions, right? And let's say you watched the previous video I made on order blocks and knowing more about price action, right? This would be an order block created in London, but as an entry point for us in our New York AM session. Now looking at the London session, we had an order block right here that was made in the Asian session, and we tapped into it in the London session, right? And looking at our PM session, which is mostly for reversal, I also made a video on this, which is time is fractal, and it's basically us talking more about the quarterly theory, whereby we see that it's accumulation in the first 6 hours, manipulation, distribution, then reversal in the last 6 hours, right? So right here, since it's no longer 6 hours, it's 4 hours, it's supposed to be right here. This was supposed to end right here, or our New York PM session was actually supposed to end right here, right, halfway through central bank dealers range. But since we are saying the last 2 hours of our trading day, this right here would be like this, right? So would have our Asia beginning at 6 here, right? You can see it highlighted it down there if you look at it. At 6, our Asian session, that's where exactly our PM session ended. But we are saying these 2 hours, the last 2 hours of the day, are important for us to see what's gonna happen the next day. And the first 2 hours of the day are important as well for us to see what's gonna happen. So now, if we always keep this 4-hour range like this, right, or our central bank dealers range, now let's say we use it in this sense that I'm gonna show you right here, right? I'm just gonna mark it like this, right, where we see our Asian session taking our central bank dealers range low first, right, for us to see an update. Or we see our central bank dealers range taken low, the low taken here, right? Then we reverse, go high, take the high, then fall lower. Now I want you to look at these things right here, right? The 2 days, the 2 days, previous day and current day, because this at the moment it's actually current day. As I'm talking right now, these things are actually playing out. Now I want you to look at something right here. Look at today's central bank dealers range high. Look at previous day central banks dealers range high. Do you see that we were taking central bank dealers range high, then reversing? What happened today? Central bank dealers range was taken, then we made a move lower. Let's go check with the other days, right? We see here our central bank dealers range low was taken first by the Asian session, then we saw a move higher for this day. Going to the next day right here, we see that now, how come in here it's not doing that, right? How come it did not actually take the low right here and we saw a move higher? What do you see here, right? This is very important right here. Your fair value gaps that are created in each and every session. So let's say we are in the London session in here, right? We have to look back in the Asian session and see what was created, and we clearly see these 3 down candles which give us an order block. This would be a trade in the London session, right? in this day, what happens, we do not take central bank dealers range low. Well, for me, when I'm looking at this, I can say that we took central bank dealers range low. Why? It's because I would be looking at the body's range now. So it's important that you look at the body's range in the central bank dealers range. Right here, we look at the body low, or the lowest low in terms of body in this time period, right? We see that this body right here takes these lows right here, and then we see a move higher. What happens in the London session? London session sees order blocks, or let's say you had this breaker right here, but I like using order blocks in this kind of thing. So we saw our order block right here, and in the London session as well, we see our move higher. Did you see what I've been showing you here? It's some sort of repetition whereby London session, if it's using this data right here, London repeats the very same thing every single time. And right here we see our central bank dealers range low taken here, right? Our Asian session did that. Our London comes back and takes the Asian low, then we see a move higher to take the central bank dealers range high, then we see a move lower in New York. So the two sessions here that provide the big moves, right? And this is so easy to see. The minute you start dividing your own charts like this, you always see that somehow the New York session right here, if you look at the New York session, there are big moves in the New York session right here. This is the New York session move. This is the New York session move. This is a New York session move. This is a New York session move, right? So if you wanted to be trading, right, and finding big moves, it's either you'd be trading London session or the New York session and ignoring all the others. But they cannot be ignored. That's the other thing. You can ignore them in terms of saying you are not going to trade in here, or you are not going to trade in here, right? Which gives you a lot of confluence already, because if you're living this 4 hours plus this 4 hours, that's 8 hours in a day. You are not gonna place a trade, right? Plus these 4 hours. So 12 hours in a whole day, you are not actually looking at at trading. And what are you left with? You are left with the two trading sessions. And why am I saying you shouldn't trade in the New York PM session? Now, I just want you to look at this data right here. Look at this move in the New York PM session. You see, it's not a move where you'd find any big move. New York PM session is here as well. You see, it's just a consolidation. So most of the time, your New York PM session, you find it just being a consolidation. So starting from here up until here is a consolidation, right? Consolidation from here to here, consolidation. Going to the next day, our New York PM from here to here, consolidation. Going from here to here, we don't see, it wasn't a consolidation, but it wasn't a huge move. Unless there's news in here, you won't see any moves. And in here as well, we see this small move right here. In this, we see this small move as well. It's not even highlighted, but I can just see that, okay, so if we are saying New York PM starts at 12 right here, right there, and ends when the central bank dealers range start, you can see obviously there's a consolidation right here. So you want to ignore everything New York PM session, ignore central bank, ignore Asia, and look for your entries in here and in here, because these two sessions every single day provide you with the big moves, right? And it's like this in each and every single day. Now I don't wanna you know, take away the fun from you. You only have to go into your charts and have all the fun, whereby you are, it's simple, hey? Only thing you need to do is add how many lines to your chart every single day. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and you're done. So 6 lines each and every day. So let's go into a new day, right, and actually look at what I'm talking about. So since it's New York time, we're gonna look at, let's say we wanted to trade this day right here. This day, the candle itself opened up at 6, which means it's right here, right? That's the central bank. So I'm just gonna make this bigger for you here. So this is us marking our trading session. So this is the central bank. Sorry, I'm not gonna include the central bank in this minute. I just wanna add the sessions themselves. So we have 4 trading sessions, right? 12 right here. Then this day ends right here. So looking at this was this whole day right here. So this is previous day, this is next day, after this day. And while we look at this, we can see that the big moves were in what? Right here. We're in your New York session, or in the way that I had it, it was like this. Now we see our London session as well, providing some move right here. Now we want to add our central bank dealers range. So it means we say last 2 hours of this past day right here. These are the last 2 hours. And since here begins the new day, the first 2 hours of this day, right? So it will be here. So this is exactly what happens. This day begins here, right? Meaning Asian session begins here. But because we want to use this first 2 hours of data, now Asian session belongs here, or goes 2 hours in front than what it should start as, right? And now we have this gone right there, and we have this as our central bank, this is our Asian session, this is our London session, this is our New York session, and our New York PM session. So New York, most of the time, if you do the research, you will see that New York provides the bigger moves in your chart. Now, I'm sure that was all, and I hope you liked the video. Please subscribe, as it helps us grow and make sure that we actually keep uploading content like this for you. So up until next time, good luck and good trading.